Welcome, everybody. I am Nikki Rausch, your sales maven, and entrepreneurs and organizations hire me to learn how to sell in an authentic way without being aggressive or pushy so that you're able to build strong rapport, develop deep, connected relationships with your clients, and ultimately close more deals. You are here to participate in a 6-part series, the sales training series, and I'm so happy to have you here with me today. And the topic today is sales strategy, why you are losing sales. So this is part 1 of 6. Know that the others are coming, and I encourage you to check them out because they are packed full of tips that you can immediately implement into your business. So for today, this idea of why are you losing sales? I want to start by talking about what is on the worksheet. So by the way, if you haven't gotten the worksheet yet and you're watching this as a replay, you can go ahead and pause this video and go grab it by going to yoursalesmaven.com/free. So that's yoursalesmaven.com/free. And you might even look in the comments. Kathy Bliss is my online sales manager, and she is in participating with us here today. So she's probably going to post that, knowing Kathy and how awesome she is. She will post that for you. So you can go grab this worksheet. And this is just for you to follow along. And also, if you're going to want some of the language that I'm going to give in these trainings, you're going to want the worksheets to go with them. And if you just want to listen, that's fine too. Please post your questions and comments. I will go back through those throughout the training, and definitely at the end, you'll be able to ask questions. So first thing we want to talk about is, why are you losing sales? And I want to address this from how most people talk about sales. Is they talk about fill your sales funnel. Has anybody heard that before about your sales funnel? I know I have. I come from the corporate background. I've been in sales for almost 25 years. And in the technology space specifically. So selling multi-million-dollar deals, working with some of the largest companies in the world. I've sold to NASA, I've sold to Hewlett-Packard, I've sold to Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and many, many other companies. And so this idea of a sales funnel, I have heard this, I know this, I understand it, and yet sales funnel to me is more marketing lingo, really, because they're talking about getting leads in the door and generating leads, and how do you get people to tumble back down through the funnel and then ultimately close the deals. And I get the concept of the funnel. It is very important that you fill your funnel, but when you're talking about authentic relationship selling, I actually teach it as if it's a staircase. So it's your job to move your clients through the steps. And if you don't understand where you are in the selling staircase, what step you're on, chances are you're going to miss that step. You're going to miss some piece with somebody. And that is what's going to cause you to lose sales. So I want to address this selling staircase with you and talk through it just a bit. And then I'm going to give you some really important tips on how to move clients through the selling staircase, like the number one way that you do it. So we're going to talk about that. So in the selling staircase, there are 5 steps. 5 steps that you need to pay attention to. The first one is the introduction piece. Now, this introduction piece can come in many forms. It could come in the form of you going to an event and meeting somebody for the first time. It could also be somebody going to your website. It could be somebody being introduced to you via email. However, they're coming to have some awareness around you. This is the introduction piece. And what is critical here is that you make a very powerful first impression, that you send the message instantly, 1, that you're likable, and 2, that you're credible. I think those are crucial to building success in the sales process, because especially in this day and age, let's be honest, people are savvy and people are skeptics, right? I know I am. We hear so many stories of where things go wrong or somebody got taken advantage of. So we're skeptics, and we want to make sure that the people that we're giving our money to are credible. So what you're doing in that first impression is critical. Now, I mentioned this is a 6-part series. So in the next part 2, I'm actually going to talk and break down one piece in the introduction step. And I'm going to do that in the following trainings after that on each step. So that's the introduction piece, getting to know your business. And by the way, in the introduction piece, sometimes these are people who have known you for years, but they don't understand what you do. And so there is things that you need to do in the introduction piece to let people know who you are and what you do. And do it in an effective way without being gross and salesy, right? Now, step 2 is this piece around creating curiosity. If you're not creating curiosity about your business, chances are you don't get to talk about your business very often. Or you talk about your business so much that you turn people off and they're like, oh, I see you coming, and I like turn and go the other way. Like, how can I get out of this conversation with you as fast as possible? Chances are it's because you don't really understand how to create some curiosity, and people are getting turned off by that. So the curiosity piece is leaving people wanting more, needing more, asking questions. And also, this is the step where you start to see buying signals show up. Now, those of you who are familiar with my work, you know that buying signals is a big part of what I teach. I actually wrote my second book about buying signals because it is so crucial to the selling process. If you have never heard the term buying signals before, I'm going to encourage you to get onto my website and look through my blog posts and get some information, and maybe even consider getting that book and understanding more about buying signals, because when you get a buying signal, you have to act on it. And buying signals come after creating some curiosity. So that's why that is in step 2 of the selling process. Now, step 3 is the discovery piece. This is where now we're actually having a real conversation, and it's my job to uncover, what are your biggest struggles? What are your needs? What are your wants? And I do that by learning how to ask the right questions. So I am going to share in part, I guess that would be part 3 or 4, maybe. I'm going to share with you some really critical things that people are doing in that discovery process that is causing them, again, to get people to not make a decision. So you want to make sure you catch that piece too in the discovery. So once you've gone through the discovery and now you understand what their need is, what their struggle is, how you can be of service to them, that's when you move them to the next step. And the next step is the proposal piece. That's where you start laying out ways that you can support them or help them or show them a product that is going to meet their need. So what you're doing in the proposal piece it's crucial that you understand how to clearly lay out your offer and do it in a way that is strategic, that makes it easy for them to make a decision. All right, now step 5, once you've laid out your proposal, the next step is the close. And there's some critical language here that you're going to want to have that makes it, again, easy for somebody to make a decision and move to that next step where they actually pay you money for your product and service. This is crucial. So the reason I'm addressing these steps is because I want you to understand one of the number one reason why you're losing sales is because you are skipping steps in the sales process. I find this over and over and over again with clients. Too often, people go from introduction to close. It's like, how annoying is it when somebody shows up and says, like, hey, I'm Nikki, you want to buy from me? Like, you're like, well, that's too fast. That's too aggressive. That's too, whatever happens. And so I find this a lot. I work with so many of my clients on this step. And when I start to understand like what's going on in their selling process, there's some key piece that's just missing. And sometimes it's like the littlest tiny tweak can make the difference. And 9 times out of 10, it's because they are missing steps. You're essentially saying to a client, hey, stand in front of this staircase, Mr. or Mrs. Client, and now just from a standing position, go ahead and hop up 5 steps. Now, some people who have a really strong core might be like, hey, no problem, totally got that, happy to jump up a bunch of steps. But most people would look at you like you're insane. And they would say like, no, I'm not going to just stand here and then hop up steps. What's the advantage to doing that? Like I might fall. I might, twist an ankle, or I might like bang up my shins in some way. So you have to understand where you are in the process and then how to move somebody to the next step. And when you're skipping steps, when you're asking somebody to go from introduction to close and you're missing all these steps, this more than likely is why you think people are interested in what you do. They seem kind of interested, but then they just go away or disappear. They start ghosting you. Chances are it's because you're missing steps. So I'll share a couple stories. I just actually had this with one of my group participants. I have a group coaching program, and in our private call, my one of my clients was sharing with me that she had put on this event and she was super excited. These people showed up to have this event, and it was about a particular topic that really didn't relate back to her business. But she wants to sell these people on her products. But that's not what they came to the workshop for. So they come to the workshop, they have this great experience with her, and then she goes right into texting them how to sell, or she starts texting them to buy product from her. It's like, it's so far out of the blue, and she's like, well, nobody's responding. Like, well, the reason nobody's responding is because you've missed so many steps in the process. You haven't created any curiosity yet. You don't even understand what their needs are. You haven't done any discovery. You haven't really laid out a proposal. You've basically just said, like, give me your money, right? Like, we're not robbing banks here. We don't get to just walk up to somebody and be like, give me your money. They won't. So once she started to understand that, it was a huge wake up actually for her to take a step back and go, oh, okay. I recognize now that there's some things that I need to do. Now, I want to say that the foundation of everything that I teach is based on rapport. So in addition to having 25 years of sales experience, I'm also a master certified practitioner of neuro-linguistic programming. And if that is a new term for anybody, I know it sounds very scientific. It's really the study of communication. So I have over 1,200 classroom hours at a master certification, which is significant. Most people with the same certification as I have maybe have 200 classroom hours. And NLP is all based on rapport. So NLP Neuro-Linguistic Programming, it stands for, so the neuro part is the brain, the way people process information in their brains, you and me. The linguistics is the language, right? So not just the things that you say to others, but also that internal dialogue you have going on. I don't know if any of you have a internal critic. I know I have a few, right? So it's the language piece. And then the programming is about habits and patterns. And in NLP, it's learning what's the structure behind excellence. That's kind of the premise of it, that there's a structure to excellence. Once you understand the structure, you can then apply that same structure to your life and get similar results. So the reason I teach the way that I do and that I build everything on rapport first and foremost is because without rapport, you've got nothing. People, we all hear this all the time. You hear marketing people say it, you hear sales people say it, you hear everybody say it. People buy from people they know, like, and trust. And that has to be built on rapport. So when I'm talking about the selling staircase and I'm talking about structure, if you have a foundation of rapport, it gets so much easier to move your clients through the steps, right? Because now you know what to do next. You've got rapport. Also, they'll give you a little bit more grace if you're not as graceful in the selling process as you could be. And if you're not quite as confident yet as you need to be in the selling process. So we've got to have rapport. And then this is, again, why I teach the selling staircase is because it's a structure. And once you have structure, you can absolutely move people through the process, right? You understand where you are. And I get this a lot. I just had one of my VIP clients, one of my private clients had shared with me that she had gone to lunch and had a lunch meeting, a really important lunch meeting. And she's like, it's the first time in a lunch meeting I ever sat in there and it was like I could sit outside of myself as an observer and I knew exactly where we were in the process and I knew exactly what to say and do next. That's what I'm teaching. That's what we're going for. And that's what I want for you. Because when you understand this structure and you understand how to move somebody to the next step, sales gets so much easier. It takes the pressure off, right? A lot of people think sales is icky or yucky or gross. And that's usually because you're showing up with kind of your intent, what you want to get out of it. And really, sales is about the client. And when you make it about the client, it takes the pressure off of you. So that's actually how I teach it. I think it's a lot more fun that way. All right, so now that we've talked about the selling staircase and we've talked about the reason you might be losing sales, let's talk about what you need to do to move somebody through to the next step. And it has to, and this is fill in the blank, by the way, on the handout. So in order to move a prospect to the next step, you must issue an invitation. So I want to talk about this invitation piece. Like, what does that mean? So it's essentially asking. Like, if you're not asking to move people to the next step, they're not going to move. They're just going to stay where they are. They're going to get the same results they've always gotten. Their problems are never going to be solved. You have to ask. And I like to say it, I like to frame it as an invitation, because an invitation feels so nice. Like, when you think about being invited to something, I don't know about you, but I love to be invited to things, even when I don't want to go. Like, it feels nice to be invited, right? I don't know about you, but if your neighbor's throwing a party and they invite everybody on the neighborhood, but don't invite you, do you kind of feel a little left out, even if you don't want to go to the party? Like, it feels nice to at least be invited, right? One of my all-time favorite songs is Cheap Trick, I Want You to Want Me. People want to be wanted. People need to be needed, and people like to be invited. So you have to learn how to issue invitations in every step of the process. This is you showing up, being confident in the selling process, understanding where you are and how to move somebody, and what is the invitation language to get them to the next step. So I recently did a VIP day with a client who showed up, and she was saying, I think my biggest issue, Nikki, that we need to work on today is this closing. Like, I'm struggling to close. So as much as I love for my clients to share what's going on, my job is to uncover like some of the stuff that they're not saying. So I get really curious, I get really interested, and I start asking questions, because I need to understand which piece of the close is she struggling with. Those of you who read my weekly newsletters maybe saw the newsletter I shared recently, which was called How to Get Paid for Results. And in there, I shared a story called The Red-Handled Wrench. If you haven't read it, and if you're interested in it, if you like stories, it's a great, powerful story about getting paid and why you charge your worth. But in there, the premises about the story is knowing where to tap. So my job in working with a client privately is knowing where to tap. Just like your job with your clients is knowing where to tap. So I don't always take things at face value. So she thinks she's struggling with the close. I'm going to ask some questions about it. And really, when we broke it down and I started kind of walking through, like, okay, so what are you doing in this step of the selling staircase? What are you doing in this step? We realized pretty quickly she is an advanced closer. She can close. The problem was she just was never getting to the close. There were some steps that she was missing in between. So by understanding what steps she was missing, by me knowing where to tap with her, then we can actually work on what's the biggest struggle for her and give her something that now she can leave, feel empowered. She can go out, she can immediately implement and start seeing results in her business, which she has. So that's exciting. So if you're sitting there right now going like, I don't really know what is going on, and I'm not really sure why people aren't moving through the selling process with me seamlessly, gracefully, and easily, it could very well be that there's one tiny little step that you're missing. And if you miss these steps, people just won't go. They'll just stand there and wait for you to do something else, or they'll go away and they'll find a competitor who can do what you can't, move them through the selling process, and they will buy from them. So it's time for you to start to understand what's going on each step and get proficient on how to move people. So here's the next fill in the blank here is when you don't do this, when you don't issue invitations, when you don't take the lead in the selling process, here's what happens. You leave people feeling unsatisfied. Now, if there's part of you that's like, oh, people feel unsatisfied of working with me, that feels like, ugh, I don't know about you, but it kind of gives me a pit in my stomach, right? We don't want people to feel unsatisfied. And yet, when you don't issue invitations, when you don't move people through the selling process, what happens is they walk away and they think that there was something wrong with them. Like, this is true. Like, maybe they look at you and go, you're a bad salesperson. But part of their unconscious mind a lot of times thinks that it's about them. Because, let's be honest, most of us think the whole world revolves around us, right? Like the whole world revolves around me. Everything that happens is a result of me, or is because of me, or is for my benefit or detriment, whichever you look at life. Your clients are the same way. So you might be thinking like, oh, I didn't want to come across pushy or aggressive, so I didn't ask this person for their business, or I didn't ask to move them through the next step in the process. And because of that, I leave them feeling unsatisfied. Like, I don't want to be pushy, but they walk away going like, oh, well, Nikki doesn't want to work with me, or she doesn't think I'm her quality of client, or she doesn't think I can afford her services. Like, I don't want people to ever feel that way with working with me, right? And I'm sure you don't want your clients to feel that way either. So be sure that you're issuing invitations, because you don't want people to feel unsatisfied. Now, I will say, because this can happen, is sometimes you'll issue an invitation and somebody will say no, right? Like, again, I've been in sales for 25 years. I have asked many people to do business with me. I've issued many, many invitations, and I have been told no once. Okay, more than once. Way more than once, right? And yet, I've never had the response that I think most people think. Like, I've never issued an invitation and had anybody like clutch their pearls and be like, oh, how dare you, Nikki? How dare you ask me for my business? Like, I've just never had that response. And my guess is you've never had it either. So get out of your own way, get out of your own head, and start issuing invitations. Let people know you want to work with them, and that you're here to support them, and that you're here to move them to the next step. All right, so the number one way to increase sales is to start issuing invitations. I had a client one time, actually this was before she hired me. We were both speaking at an event. We were both speakers, and we were speaking at an event, and she heard me talking about buying signal. She heard me talking about issuing invitations. And when we both came off the stage, we were having a private conversation off to the side, and she very gracefully said, well, you know, Nikki, I don't issue invitations to people because I sell to adults. Now, I was stunned in that moment, because sometimes when somebody says something to you that seems so outrageous that you think like, am I missing something? So in my brain, like the little squirrels are going like as fast as they can in my brain, going like, okay, who doesn't sell to adults? Like there's got to be somebody out there that doesn't sell to adults. I'm trying to figure out like, what's the point of why she's saying this to me? And I'm really confused. So finally, when I get confused, I ask questions, and I said, well, tell me a little bit more. Like, what specifically do you mean when you sell to adults? And she said, well, what I mean is, if people want to buy from me, they'll let me know. And I said, oh, yeah, that's not true. If people want to buy from you, they will not let you know. Because most of the time, they haven't even made a conscious decision yet that they want to work with you. And they won't make a conscious decision until you ask them, until you invite them to the next step. So learning how to issue these invitations, learning how to move people through the selling process, you'll actually leave people feeling more satisfied with working with you, and you'll actually get to work with more of your ideal clients. She ended up hiring me. We've actually been working together now for just over 2 years, and her business has completely changed. There's a testimonial of her where she shares her story about being a speaker, and that she used to get about a 10% opt-in rate. And once she learned how to issue invitations, her opt-in rate went to 70%. Her business is booming. She is rocking. She's amazing. Now, I will say she is an expert at what she does. I tend to only work with experts who are really good at what they do. And she is very good at what she does. And selling was not her jam, right? That's my jam. This is why people pay me money, is to learn how to sell. This is why I pay a CFO to help me with my books, right? Like, that's not my jam. So she's so good at what she does. And once she learned how to sell more effectively, things got so much easier in her business. And now she issues invitation all the time. And if you ask her, she'll tell you she gets to work with some of the best, most fulfilling clients ever. And that's what happens. So most people will not make a decision. This is the last fill in the blank here for you. Most people will not make a decision to work with you until you ask them. So please start asking. So I want to give you a language suggestion. And this is one, like there's so many pieces of language. And this is why I have a training center. I have an academy where it is filled with my trainings and filled with language suggestions. Language is kind of my jam when it comes to sales. Giving people the language of how to say things. It's not always like, it's not always what you say, it's how you say it. And so I work on both of those with my clients, the what and the how. So if I can only give you one language suggestion that you can immediately start implementing today, here it is. When somebody expresses interest in what you do, here's what I want you to say. I want you to say, what do you think about us setting up a time to chat about that further? Do you have your calendar available? And then you wait. Like as soon as you say, do you have your calendar available? You zip it. Or you get your calendar out. Like I actually do this. Like I walk around with my phone everywhere. Like, I don't know about you, but I live and die by my calendar. And I carry my calendar on my phone, right? Electronically. So I'll get my phone out and I'll say to somebody, like, what do you think about us setting up a time just to chat about this further? Like I carry my calendar right here on my phone. Do you have your calendar available? And I just look at my phone and I look at my calendar. I pull up my calendar app and I just look at it and I wait. I wait to see what they say next. And I actually schedule a lot of calls this way. People who aren't even sure how they would work with me or why they would work with me will schedule a call with me. And then we can talk. I can find out what's going on for them. What's their struggle? Is it confidence? Is it the language piece? Is it what part of the selling staircase are they not doing effectively? And then give them a proposal if they give me permission to make a proposal to them about how we might work together. And I get to work with the coolest clients as a result. So if you are not using this language piece yet, I want to encourage you to start doing it. So many times I find that I'll go to an event, I'll meet somebody, I will express interest. Like I'll be the person giving the buying signal. Like I would like to hire you. And the person says, oh, here's my card, give me a call. Worst thing, terrible. Don't ever do that. No, instead say, let's set up a time to talk about that further. Do you have your calendar available? Get it on their calendar right then and there. Because if you give someone your business card and think they're going to call you, they're not. And here's how I know it. Because how many of you right now are sitting at your desk and you have a stack of business cards of people who you intend to call, right? You're not going to call them. They're not going to call you. You got to set it up in the moment. And then when you get on their calendar, here's the best thing about getting on somebody's calendar, like the number one best thing about getting on someone's calendar. When you call them, they answer. How awesome is that? And on the flip side of it, how many of you like for somebody to just call you out of the blue, like not on your calendar? Do you ever feel like when your phone rings, you think like, how dare you call me? You're not on my calendar. Like I was asked this question when I'm speaking to a large, live group. How many of you like when people just call you out of the blue? Raise your hand. I can be in a group of 100 people and it'll be like 2 people are like, I love when people call me. The rest of everybody's like, no, no. So we want to make it easy and exciting for them to answer because you're on their calendar and now they get to check it off their to-do list because you were on their calendar. So start issuing this invitation. This is a really simple way to start moving people through the selling process. All right, so this is going to conclude part 1. I'm going to go back through here and see if I can find some questions in the chat and I will answer those and know that Part 2 is coming, so be on the lookout for that. Part 2 is all around sales conversion. It's how to move somebody from email to phone conversations. Because if you don't know how to do that piece, you are leaving money on the table. So we're going to talk about that next. That's coming in part 2. All right, let me take a look here and see what kind of questions and comments we have. All right, so hi, everybody. Thank you for the compliment, Erin. That's nice. Sandra, thank you. Yes, Ferguson Avenue, a simple yet impactful step. You got that. Thank you. I like the compliments. That's very nice. Erin thought when I said struggling with the close that that's so funny that she thought I said struggling with close, CLOTHES instead of CLOSE. I was actually just having a conversation with a good friend of mine yesterday about how certain words sound like other words and how it can confuse people. So those of you who are in my coaching program and know Ferguson Avenue specifically, she loves to tease me about one of the words that I use and how it comes out. So I get that. So so close, SLOSE, Erin. I love that. Thank you. Yes, working with young couples. That's great. Okay, so any questions? Let's see. Yes, call out of the blue interrupts your day. Nobody wants that. Okay, now Joanne said, I made the mistake of giving them my card. It's okay. So let's talk about if there's some part of you that's anybody listening or watching this right now and is thinking like, ooh, I think I did that. It's okay. You can actually go back. You can do some little damage control here. Reach back out to that person and say this, if you like this. Say, I was thinking about our conversation the other day, and I was wondering if there's some way that I might be a resource to you. And I'm wondering if we can, chat about that further. Do you have a few minutes? And then wait. Now, you might send this in an email too, because again, not everybody likes a phone call just out of the blue. So circle back with them and invite them to a next step. So you're definitely going to want to catch part 2 because I am going to talk about in part 2 how to move somebody. So if you're going to send it in an email, how to do that. So Joanne, know that it's coming. That's coming next. All right. Let's see. Yep. So let's see. I got scared after a talk. So this is, Joanne says, I got scared after a talk, so many came up to me to express interest. I was flustered and gave them all my card. Next time I'll bring a notebook. Yes, next time bring your calendar. Now here's one of the things I will say in the selling process is that one of the mistakes that can happen sometimes is that we feel like things are coming at us so fast and we can get flustered. And I'm super grateful for my NLP training because one of the things that we learned in there is how we can slow down time a little bit. And so just giving yourself permission to allow people to wait. It's okay. To you, 10 seconds, to you feels like nothing to somebody else. And sometimes actual 10 seconds to you feels like 10 minutes. And if people want to talk to you, they will wait. So it's okay to get out your calendar and schedule a time and just acknowledge, make eye contact with the people who are waiting. Like, let them know, like, I'm so excited to chat with you guys. Let me just finish this really quickly. And, say that. People will give you grace and get them on your calendar, because the other thing that can happen, especially if you're a speaker and you come off a stage and people want your attention, sometimes they want to talk about stuff that isn't even related to what you do. And they're just nice people. They want to connect with you in some way. And that's awesome. That's great. But if you're out speaking, there's a sales component there, and you need to be available to the people who are serious and want to get on your calendar and get a time with you to talk about ways that they might work with you. So be nice to the people who just want to have a conversation or just recognize you or acknowledge you in some way for the great work and the great talk that you gave. Thank them and be gracious, and then move on to the next person. Okay. So don't let them suck you in to a conversation where you might have somebody who is a potential client waiting to talk to you. So you want to get to those people. Okay. So find out quick, like, is this something we should talk about further? And if they're like, no, I just wanted to tell you that you're this or you're that. Great. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you for coming over and sharing that with me. And then you turn to the next person. You move on. Okay. All right. Let's see. Okay. So I think I just did, Ella, but she said, can you talk more about how to handle people coming at the end of the presentation? Let me know if you still have a question about that. I think I might have answered that after you posted your comment, but if not, let me know. And you are so welcome, Joanne, for that advice. I think that will really help you. Any other questions, comments before we bring this to a close? I always like to say, going once. I know you're typing, so going twice. All right, for those of you who already know you want more, I will share with you, I would love to schedule a strategy call with you. That is something I do in a 50-minute session where we really focus and dig into your business. So if that's something you're interested in, go check out. Kathy will actually put a link. I think there's a link also on the page where you get the worksheets on how to get that scheduled with me. Or if you're not sure about ways we can work together, we can absolutely do a discovery call. I call that a selling strength assessment. So that's something that I would invite you to do as well. And thank you so much for being here, for participating, for sharing your comments and questions. I appreciate that. I hope you'll come back for part 2. I'm very excited to share some content in there, which is probably one of the most impactful things about email and how to move people out of email and into a real conversation that I can possibly share with you. So have a great rest of your day. Wishing you continued success. Take care.